Countess Feldman interviewing Dr. Robert Dockson in his office on February 22nd, 1989. The focus of this interview will be on his role in the voluntary aspect of social welfare in California. I assume that you've never been in a paid social welfare position in California, is that right?
That is correct.
So that when I say voluntary, then it's...
unless you include the University of Southern California.
Well, that was in a way also voluntary, wasn't it, in some respect? But I hope we will touch on that a little. In starting, would you tell me first how you got connected with any social agency?
It's an interesting, as you're asking this question, Francis, I'm thinking back many, many years, and way back before college, I became concerned over society. And while I went through my bachelor's program at the University of Illinois, there I became acquainted with a man by the name of Dean Converse. Dean Converse influenced my life a great deal about, at that point in time, his concern over the Mississippi Valley. And he talked to me about the needs of people, convinced me that I wanted to go ahead and get my graduate degrees. And I swung as time went by. It was first international relations, then I swung towards economics. And after all, economics is a concern for our economy, our society, and how it operates and the people in it. And so I really think that it goes back to my concern over the economic and political, and the work that I took then in graduate work in those areas, and my concern for how we live and under what type of infrastructure we have, and just the way society lives. Then I was fortunate enough to, after the war, I taught the course in human values at USC. And in that philosophy course, we studied, I remember it well, I'm going back a long time now, but St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas and all of those men who wrote, people who wrote about what makes life worthwhile. And I think all of those things influenced me. When I went on to begin my teaching career, I was then teaching economics at Rutgers University, and I was invited to come out to California with Prudential Insurance Company. And then at Prudential, I became interested in what was then called the red feather.
Community chest.
The old community chest. And I became involved with them, and I developed the first fair share quota plan that I think ever existed. And I remember the Sloan Foundation had a chapter of our plan that we developed for the old community chest. And they asked me to serve on different groups down there. I was an economist for Prudential, head of the research division, and I served on various ways to help these agencies, and got me interested. And that's really how it all started. And from there, I have served on, I suppose, 20 to 25 different agencies and groups, and have become closely associated with a few. I must say that while I have become very distressed over some of these problems that they have, you can't help but feel that you hang in there because you want to help. I'm going tonight, and I'll spend first a discussion period, and then dinner with a group of doctors and lay people from Orthopedic Hospital, for example. And there we are discussing that agency, all of its problems, and what we can do to try to resolve some of those problems. So it goes from way back then, that's 50 years ago, it goes way back, till now. And I have been interested in these things all that time, and it started the way I said.
Mm-hmm. Was it from your work with what was in the community chest that you got connected with the Welfare Planning Council?
Yes. I became interested in the Welfare Planning Council, and I participated. I have forgotten the specific research, but I participated in some of those research projects, and we carried on some of those economic research projects over at Prudential. We were building a good research division, and the purpose of it was to try to look at California, the whole West. We had 11 western states, but our emphasis was, of course, here in California, because that's where most of our thinking was. Mm-hmm. Yes, I became involved with the Welfare Planning Council and their research groups and the various problems that we had. I remember now, and one of them, can't call them by name, but I remember some of the individuals who were very inspirational as far as I was concerned, and because they were interested in a young person like I was then involved in the social problems of our communities.
I'm sure you don't know or remember that our paths crossed then. You were chairman of the research division. I have
a faint recollection of that, but until now I didn't know that. Francis, and you never mentioned that. I don't believe you ever mentioned that at the university when I was there.
No, I don't think I did. And what reminds me of it now, aside from your own discussion of the that resulted from that, the family in the does a text around the country. You see, you had a role in that, yeah. And this evening I will be giving a talk on the meanings of money to the elderly. My target population is changing, but it's still the same fundamental principles that emerged out of that study when you were chairman.
You know, now as you're talking that way, I think of many other things. This is the way research goes, of course. I think of many other things, and the most recent was my attempt in this company to bring, I've even forgotten her name, but a social worker into the company itself. Mm-hmm. You know her, and I can't think of gerontology she was particularly interested in.
Yes, Virginia.
Yes, what was her last name? Help me, Virginia. That will come to mind, but we brought her in. She did a wonderful job for us, wonderful job. But it's typical of an academic mind, and a company often must do things that the academic mind wants to wander off and take different ways, and you can't do that. But she did a lot of good for our customers, and I think for many of our own people. But there I was trying to bring it into a business setting, and we did. I think that one of the areas that I had a great, well, I have to be careful because I had certainly had a great deal of satisfaction out of the Orthopedic Hospital that I have been involved in for about 17 years, I think. Yet our work last year, when the United Way had its problems, and I was invited to be chairman of the so-called Blue Ribbon Committee to look at those problems, I felt that we made a significant contribution because we really did a good job. It was an excellent panel, excellent people.
Was this when the community became incensed over the way the funds were being used? Would you elaborate a little on that? Because I think that's a very significant event, and I think your contribution was
I think the committee's contribution was very significant. But when I had received a call one day from the then president of United Way, and we were reading about all of this in the newspapers, and really what it was what appeared to be the misuse of funds in United Way. After all, we all give. We give to United Way, and to read about those funds being used to help move someone from Cincinnati out here, or to make them loans that they haven't repaid. This sounds, in the newspaper, it sounds like a fraudulent thing almost, and people were incensed. And this one writer, I interviewed him, met with him. This one writer had something that he could write, and the papers were printing. And so they did. And people were saying, I'm not going to give to United Way anymore. And about that time, the president and someone else who knows me well, another chief executive officer, came out, and I'm saying it now just about the way it happened. They said, Bob, we know your reputation in this community is good. We know that you have no axe to grind. We know that this huge agency is in difficulty, and we need to have a blue ribbon committee that will look honestly, objectively, and in depth at the problems of the United Way. And I said, I want you to put this in writing and define for me just what it is that you want done. And they did. I have a document in our files that said we want to give you carte blanche to look at United Way, its organization, its management, its function, and you are free to go anywhere the committee wants to go. We then labored over the kinds of people that we wanted on the committee. It was appointed. We had Sister Magdalene, for example, on that committee. We had lawyers on that committee. We had accountants. We had people that represented women's group. Labor was represented on that committee. We had the entire community, both ethnic, makeup of the ethnic groups were represented. Now, we conducted that study for a period of, as I recall, 4 or 5 months, and explored in depth, had great interviews, invited in all the people who were connected with this study, or with this problem, the men who had served as volunteers as well as the paid employees. I created subcommittees to look at the loan to such and such a person, or the gift in some cases, such and such a person. And the study began to take shape. We were all very worried about it for a long time. We then worked over. The subcommittee chairman would report to the full committee, and that full committee would have its input. The staff would help us, staff of our choosing, not the United Way's choosing. They had nothing to do with this. Now, when the study was finally completed and we released that study, we held a big press conference here. The press was here. And in essence, the results of the study, the United Way was strong, making tremendous contribution in our community. It had some management problems. The management of United Way took a leaf out of the book of many companies and realized, just as I would say that we do, realized that to attract attractive people into United Way, they had to look elsewhere than here. But our living costs were so much higher than they were in Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, wherever these people were invited to come from. And so the United Way made moving cost loans. Now, this isn't all, but this is one area that got the most attention. And these loans had not been pursued aggressively to collect them after they got here and they'd worked out and agreed to a program. And so we were very critical of management in that regard. But in the purposes, the intent, the volunteers, they stood the test of scrutiny, and I was very proud when it was all done, and I could look these press people in the eye and say there was no fraud here. This was done to try to do a better job, and the laxness in how it was administered was a reflection upon the then current management. And if you will recall, Francis, that management was moved out in the next 6 to 9 months, whatever it was. But they had a transition period because that management was well known in this community and well liked and had all kinds of contacts that were important for the United Way. The agencies suffered somewhat because we couldn't convince everyone. I had many sessions about this, but I think in the second year, all that was made up and they were back on track. And so that was, to me, a significant contribution. The United Way could have gone under it unless they had created this group to look at what it was causing the difficulty.
Are you still connected with the United Way?
No, only I make a contribution to the United Way, and that's my connection. No. I have no desire to continue. They tried to get me involved in that, but no, I thought it was much more important that I stay completely away from being a part of the United Way, and I did. We're talking about different types of programs. I'm getting involved right now in Alzheimer's disease and in the French Foundation, and I run on that board to try to help them because that's such a horrible disease that they're going to need help. What it is to raise money. We try to help them raise money. There's things of this nature that I have enjoyed working with and trying to make a contribution. I have been particularly concerned about help the Doheny Eye Institute, for example, with help with welfare. I have helped the police, their DARE program, which I think is a significant program, and Sheriff Block's program on, I think he calls his SAFE. These are programs that I believe are doing a good job. I'm on the Haynes Foundation. We've just given a grant to study the impact of the DARE program in one community and to see whether or not it's doing what they hope it will be doing.
You say the dental program?
DARE.
Oh, the DARE program.
DARE program. This is the as you know, the drug program for youngsters in really in grade school. And I think that in that area, I made a little talk the other night, a group of men who were talking about the problems of our society. There's no question in my mind the most severe problem facing our society is drugs and what it's doing to the younger generation who someday will be sitting in my chair and the like. And this simply must be stopped. And so wherever anyone has asked me to participate in those programs, I become interested and involved. I have served as chairman of several different campaigns to raise money for different causes. I remember Ed Davis, the chief of police, coming to me and asked me to serve as a chairman of the committee to raise some funds to get a bond issue for radios and talking machines and the like for his police force. And they called me in rather late, and it was defeated as a bond issue. And we were having a post-mortem of that, and Ed Davis said, well, this is something we need. It's radio communications law. I said, well, I don't think we handled it right last time. We can do that. We went to work, we raised the money, and our police force I don't know whether it's true today, but had one of the finest communication systems, because the next time the bond issue was passed, and it was big, I've forgotten, it was $75, $80 million. And that was very, very helpful in helping the police do their job and do it more effectively and safer for the policemen. But, you know, we can go on and on about some of these things, and it all comes down to, I feel that every man who serves in the kind of job I've had owes much to his community. And how do you pay it back? And sure, some things you'd say, maybe you do it to help your company, but I really don't believe any of these is done with that thought in mind, that this is something that's going to put our company ahead. It's because I believe that we should be spending our time, part of our time, a certain amount of our time, on the societal problems that we have.
When you look back over the organizations you've been involved with and the crusades, if I can call them that you've been connected with, what stands out as especially satisfying or significant, or maybe both satisfying and significant? Does any special event?
Well, I have a couple. In I think the year is right, 82 or 83, when interest rates were very high and housing came to a complete, almost standstill, I picked up the crusade, and I was concerned. It's true, this did affect the company, but I was concerned over the stream of housing, because we were really beginning to have housing problems in California. And at that time, this was probably, might have been 79. At that time, I was very active in the State Chamber of Commerce, had been president, and created, I said, we've got to tackle this problem. And we created a conference on housing and the need for housing and what was happening to housing. Brought people from Washington, local people, experts, and that was a very successful conference, and a publication came out of that pointed to the fact that something had to be done, and being specific, the problems and things that had to be done. And I carried that same problem over to the Business Roundtable, the California Business Roundtable, where I was active in that. And I took on the problem of housing there. And so I think that those two things, the participation in those programs, that both resulted in decent publications, brief, but the purpose to stimulate people's interest and give them information of where that housing is going, stand out in my mind. In addition, the thing I mentioned about United Way, because I am convinced that United Way could have had a setback that would have lasted for years if we couldn't have given that an objective view and said, here are the things wrong, something has to be done, these are the things that should be done, but basically the organization is sound, the purpose of it is sound, the money has not been really misused. Those things had to be brought out for the press and the public, and I feel that was a significant contribution. And then all my work on behalf of universities and the like, which are in a way, part of this, both at USC and Pepperdine University, where I've been involved in, I have enjoyed a great deal. I did go around to a lot of agencies at one point in time, and that was an experience well worthwhile. So there's a lot of things, but I think as far as my contributions, these are the things that come to mind right now as I think about it. I've worked awfully hard at Orthopedic Hospital, and I worked hard, Francis, to bring Orthopedic Hospital into the fold of the university. But I must say that the cooperation we got from the university and the lack of foresight and vision, very disappointing.
Isn't it now affiliated?
It's affiliated, but it is going to be, it's going to lose out.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm. Because they're building that hospital over on the campus, and now they are saying that all of the professors, or not professors, but all the doctors who became affiliated with the university must send their patients, their elective patients, to that hospital. And it just is ridiculous. And I wanted gerontology to go over at the hospital. I had visions of all kinds of things that can be done with that land. That land belongs, I mean, it's so close to the university. It's just wrong not to try to put it together.
You don't think that it might still come about?
Well, yes, I think eventually it will.
But it takes a long time.
I think eventually it will. Norman Topping and I had lunch the other day, and he sees it like I do. But some current managers have just didn't understand, haven't seen it. But from the day that Franz Bauer, I remember Franz Bauer?
Oh, yes, indeed.
He and I first started that when he was alive, to bring Orthopedic Hospital into it. And I've been chairman of the subcommittee in charge of that relationship for several years. And when the university made this deal with National Medical Enterprises, they didn't read the fine print, and the fine print said that their patients must be sent to that hospital, and they carried us well down before they finally sat down with me and explained to me that that was happening. But look at that piece of land down there, so close to the university, and you could move so many areas of the university onto that campus.
But I know that some of the research that is actually based in the health sciences is conducted at Orthopedic.
We have at Orthopedic, we have some of the most extensive funds available. There's another area, Francis, that I think has given me more satisfaction than anything I've done. In terms of this area, I've been on the board of the Haynes Foundation since before I left the university, and so we have given millions of dollars to different projects and the like, and scholarships. In fact, the University of Southern California had no scholarships from the Haynes Foundation until we went on the board and argued on behalf of the university, and now they have more than anyone else. And we just finished reviewing 52 applications for small grants, but grants for summer fellowships, faculty scholars fellowships, right? And again, I was pleased because they come from all of the universities around, and USC, and from time to time the School of Social Work has received assistance from the Haynes Foundation. But those grants that we have given for projects of all kinds, whether some of them are, all of them have to do with the social sciences. All of them have to do with the welfare of people in California, and mainly in the Los Angeles area. And I overlooked that when I was talking there, because the Haynes Foundation has been a true inspirational undertaking that I have been with for all these years, since before I left the university.
Well, I remember Maynard Toll talking about your contribution to that.
Well, Maynard and I were, I thought an awful lot of that man. He was a very wonderful person, capable, interested in all these things, and together we were interested in the same areas.
Yes, we did an oral interview.
Did he before he died?
Yes, yes. And
she back I go back, in the Welfare Planning Council, she was involved in that.
Yes.
I have forgotten that until right now, but she was involved.
She worked very closely with my husband when he was director of health and then mental health programs.
Well, and she wasn't she active in the schools too?
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah. Well, bless her heart.
In your views about what a person who is not a social work professional can do in the field of social welfare that professionals could or could not do. What is there special that the lay volunteer can contribute?
I don't know as my answer will be either what you would like to hear or what is the real thing, what the real answer. But I believe a layperson brings a great deal to the agency. Now, I mean, it can be a hospital, it can be a YMCA, a Boy Scout. There's another project that I have been involved in. You talk, you think of these things. I don't care what area it is, but I have seen this happen time and time again. Let me take, I can take two or three, but let me take the YMCA, for example. The YMCA has been important to a lot of men in our community. And I have seen those men go on of that board and, first of all, bring better accounting, much better accounting, better organization, better management, make decisions to move management, to bring in competent help, passing judgment upon the structure of the organization. Then I have seen them come up with ideas, and who would ever have thought, for example, that a golf tournament could be held in my name and make any money for the YMCA. Last year, the golf tournament, I think this is the 4th or 5th year of it. Last year, that tournament in one day contributed $136,000 to the YMCA. And it goes up each year in what it has contributed to the YMCA. Well, it takes a long time to raise $100,000, as you know. And that idea came out of a friend of mine, and he wanted to do it, and he pushed it through, and he did that. The professionals in the Y wouldn't have thought of that, wouldn't have done anything like that. So, and of course, the raising the money is important. But I think, when I think of my lay friends, the thing I'm going to tonight, a layman will conduct the meeting. And there is no way, this is a group of doctors and a group of laymen, 4 lay people, 4 or 5 doctors, and we will sit for 4 or 5 hours, and this will be led by the layperson, and we will explore what and how we can manage this particular problem we have within the hospital. Now, the professional can't get this done because, the competition in that case, among the doctors. And someone must pass judgment. We have one particular layperson who ran his own business, sold his own business, was very successful, loves the hospital, goes down there and spends days really straightening out their books, coming in with the most modern approach to the system accounting that they have. No professional in that hospital can do that. I will do that. The Scouts, I have watched our lay people raise big sums of money for the Boy Scouts. I have something here that they invited me to come to participate in for the Boy Scouts, but it's a meeting of some of the older men with some of the kids to talk about the problems and what they're going to do. That has to be done to successfully to get my attention, because you get letters from organizations. Probably half of those letters there are from organizations asking for money. And you know that's professionally done, but when it's signed by a friend of yours, you pay attention. So I think the lay people make it happen, Francis, and I go way back, and I learned when I was interested in the community chest, the Welfare Planning Council. I remember the Welfare Planning Council, I haven't thought of that in a long time, but I remember I concluded that if the professionals in the area of social, and I'm including maybe this broad area here, social work, wants to get things done, they have to call upon competent lay people to help them get it done. And the wise agency will know that and get around them competent, capable people who will work on their behalf and get it accomplished in the community. Because you can have a group of fine professional people, but if they don't know how to sell their services, if they don't know how to promote it, if they don't know how to really raise the money for it, it will die.
But even if they knew how, and some I expect do, there is something, and I hear you really saying this too, that the lay volunteer can contribute in the way of community involvement, contact, expertise, and a lot of time and skill that the professional, even having the knowledge, doesn't have the time or the funds to do.
I agree 100%, but I think that the successful agency is a marriage of those two, where the layperson has respect and for the professional in his field, has a deep interest in the field and wants to see something done, and in turn the layperson, the professional must respect the lay and not play politics and backbite that I have seen behind the scenes, but to give credit for that person trying to help. And I couldn't agree more. It doesn't mean that it's the old law of comparative advantage. This professional might be able to raise the money, and in many cases they have their contact and they know somebody and big sums of money come in. But for a sustained agency, one to go on over time, it has to involve the community, involve the leaders in the community, and use them for their goals and objectives, the same as I think it's important that the lay people say, I have a desire to be a part of this community and participate, and this is a way I can do that.
I think that's important, and one reason in our little project we're including interviews with people who've been involved in volunteerism is that we know that without that, social agencies couldn't get very far. So a very important dynamic to agency success and to community service.
I agree.
Ask you also about whether you have available a biographical statement that might list some of the organizations with which you've been connected in one way or another.
My secretary has changed that statement over time, but I think we have a current one that I'll be glad to give you.
All right. Do you have a photograph I can have too?
I don't know. They took some photographs of me the other day for a book, I don't know. I will ask him.
I also wanted to, you had mentioned that you had been the subject of some other oral histories. I was wondering whether you could tell me several things about them. One, their purpose. Two, where they're located. Three, if they seem relevant, would you object to our having copies of them, or getting copies and putting them with this one?
I didn't mean to imply, for instance, that I had histories. What I said, I've had many interviews like this.
Yes, you did say interviews.
That's right. And I don't think I've ever had an oral history taken of me. But that reminds me, I raised money for the School of Public Administration to do an oral history of the speakers of the House up in Sacramento.
Oh, yes, I remember
Jess
that
Unruh's
project.
That's right, Jess Unruh's project. And we gave quite a bit of money to that at his request and all. And I never did hear the results of it. But no, I have not had an oral history interview. I've had lots of interviews like this about, economics, about the industry.
I asked about it because if there were some that were relevant, then it's useful for us to get copies and have them for the researcher who wants to know more.
What you should get, though, if you didn't receive a copy of the United Way study, it seems to me you ought to have that.
We did not get it. Could we get it through Mr. Cornelius, or do you have it?
I don't know whether we have any extras of that, and I want to keep one if we have only one. But I really feel that was a significant report of ours.
That also reminds me of something else that I didn't want to leave without asking you, whether you have anywhere any reports or correspondence that would show something about what had happened in the past, trying to get things going in social agencies. Anything that might be of use in our archival collection.
Oh, I don't think so, Francis. I don't think any of this can be really useful to you. I can't think of anything that...
It's worth asking because sometimes someone suddenly remembers something. I do have this.
Well, I don't know where it is, but I tell you that original, and this would be history, the original study that was done by the Sloan Foundation about fair share giving to corporations, that I would love to be able to find and give you a copy of. I remember the book that came out. I haven't seen it in years, haven't thought of it, but that showed some pretty progressive thinking. Now, today it's a different story, but we're going back a long time. We're going back maybe 38 years, something like that.
Well, if you were able to come across it, or even to let me know where you think I might find it, we would work on tracking it down. It is significant because it certainly set the pattern for federated financing of social agencies.
And they followed that for several years, and they still use the phrase, fair share giving. You can look up, and they must have a list of publications of the Sloan Foundation, Albert Sloan Foundation. And the Sloan Foundation published this book somewhere around 50, 51, 52, somewhere in there. The book. I'll bet anything, like the Haynes Foundation, it has a list of all of its publications. And the Sloan Foundation would have a list of all of its publications.
We'll check
somewhere
that
back in
out.
that time frame. I can't tell you exactly when. Might have been 51. But I was at Prudential at the time, and before I returned to the university, that's when that happened.